Interview questions. 1. What is software quality assurance? Software quality assurance is the process of monitoring and improving all activities associated with software development, from requirements gathering to coding, testing, and implementation. Is a set of methods and activities designed to ensure that the developed software corresponds to all the specifications. Deals more with the management stuff, methods and techniques of development, project analysis, checklists, etc. Is preventative and about the whole process of software development. It involves monitoring and improving the process, following agreed-upon standards and procedures, detecting and dealing with problems at the earliest possible stage. Describe the QA process. Quality assurance, QA, is a way of preventing mistakes and defects in manufactured products and avoiding problems when delivering products or services to customers. 2. What is quality testing? Software testing is mainly about testing, verifying the software to detect the differences between existing and required conditions. Requirements is a way of exploring the system to check how it operates and find the possible defects. It includes a set of activities conducted with the intent of finding errors in software so that it could be corrected before the product is released to the end users. Analyzing the software, detecting differences between existing and required conditions, evaluating the features of the software. 3. What is the difference between software quality assurance and quality testing? QA controls the testing process and verifies that software is able to work under the given set of conditions. Testing concentrates on case studying, their implementation and evaluation. QA and testing work in the same direction and focus on product quality. Professional attitude towards the common goal together with strong communication will ensure the realization of the stated goal. 4. Software Development Life Cycle, SDLC. Software Development Life Cycle is a conceptual model used in project management to describe the stages involved in development of an application, from an initial feasibility analysis through maintenance of the completed application. How do you think, at what stage of SDLC QA team should be involved? Quality assurance refers to the planned and systematic way of monitoring the quality of the process, which is followed to maintain the quality of the product. QA is proactive and plays important roles in each phase of SDLC. 5. Types of software testing: functional testing, non-functional testing, performance testing, security testing, usability testing, compatibility testing, integration, testing, regression. Testing, system, testing, user interface, UI, UX, testing, accessibility testing, API testing, data-driven. Testing is a method of automated testing where test data is stored separately from the test scripts, typically in files, databases, or tables. The test scripts are executed multiple times with different sets of data, allowing the software to be tested under various conditions with different input values. This approach makes it easy to add new test cases by simply changing the input data without modifying the test scripts themselves. Acceptance. Testing is a type of software testing where the product is evaluated to determine if it meets the established requirements and user expectations. It is the final phase of testing before the product is released to production. The primary goal of acceptance testing is to ensure that the system is ready for real-world use and satisfies the customer's or end user's needs. Smoke testing. Recovery. Testing is a type of testing that focuses on verifying a system's or application's ability to recover from crashes, failures, or other disruptions. During this testing, the system is evaluated on how quickly and completely it can return to a normal operating state after critical events such as hardware failures, software bugs, or power outages. The goal is to ensure that the data and functionality of the application are preserved and restored correctly after such incidents. Load testing, stress testing, stability testing, installation testing, alpha testing, beta testing. 6. What is functional testing? Functional testing is a type of software testing in which the system is tested against the functional requirements and specifications. Functional testing ensures that the requirements or specifications are properly satisfied by the application. 7. How do you run the functional testing? It behaves exactly as required. Test the application against product requirements by running positive, negative, and boundary condition testing.
8. What is the difference between functional and non-functional testing? Functional requirements are the what. Non-functional requirements are the how. So the testing of functional requirements is the verification that the software is executing actions as it should, while non-functional testing helps verify that customer expectations are being met. 9. What is positive testing? To make sure that software works as expected when we provide the valid input. We use valid input and get absolutely valid results, output. We want to prove that the application behaves that it is supposed to behave. Happy pass testing is always positive testing, usually 1 or 2. Make sure that app is behaving as expected, required, when we provide expected valid input. 10. How to optimize testing activities. You can use an equivalence partitioning technique, classes, in order to optimize testing. All possible input, we divide 11. What are boundary conditions? It is the optimal process of testing at very critical points at extreme ends or boundaries between partitions of the input values. Is it the right definition? 12. During what type of testing is there the biggest quantity of bugs? During boundary testing, because it's very easy to make mistakes there. 13. Is it possible to create any software application without involving the SQA process? Yes, we can create any software application without involving the SQA process, but in order to prevent main issues and global defects that may cause rewriting the entire code, entire application, we should include the SQA process. 14. What is a use case? A use case is a list of actions or event steps typically defining the interactions between a role and a system to achieve a goal. The actor can be a human or other external system. Use case is a source for the user stories. It can be multi-user stories for one use case. Use case is a written description of how users will perform tasks on your website, for example. Each use case is represented as a sequence of simple steps, beginning with a user's goal and ending when that goal is fulfilled. 15. What is QA methodology? Preventative process. 16. What are some of the differences between Agile and Waterfall? The two main development methodologies are Agile and Waterfall. They are commonly applied to software development, and thus project management as well. The main difference between Agile and Waterfall is that Waterfall projects are completed sequentially, whereas Agile projects are completed iteratively in a cycle. 17. Explain Waterfall development model. It's a sequential software development process where progress flows steadily toward the conclusion, like a waterfall, through the phases of a project, that is, analysis, design, development, testing. 18. Explain continuous integration. Continuous integration, CI, is a development practice that requires developers to integrate code into a shared repository several times a day. Each check-in is then verified by an automated build, allowing teams to detect problems early. 19. What is the difference between requirements and specifications? A requirement is something essential to the existence or occurrence of something else, whereas a specification is a detailed, precise presentation of something or of a plan or proposal for something. 20. In what environment can we test the application? Can be tested in any environment, but it is better to test in the dedicated QA environment. 21. When we can start and run the functional testing? What levels of testing do you know? On system testing level. There are 4 main stages of testing that need to be completed before a program can be clear 22. What is wrong? Why does the build works in a QA environment but does not work in production? Different hardware, different environment, different database, network version, configuration, etc. 23. Equivalence class, testing versus boundary value testing equivalence class testing. EC testing is when you have a number of test items, for example, values, that you want to test, but because of cost, time, money, you do not have time to test them all. Therefore, you group the test item into class where all items in each class are supposed to behave exactly the same. The theory is that you only need to test one of each item to make sure the system works. Example 1. Children under 2 ride the bus for free. Young people pay $10, adults $15, and senior citizens pay $5. Classes, price 0, age 0, 1 price 10, age 2, 14 price 15, age 15, 64 price 5, age 65 infinity example 2, more than one parameter. Cell phones K80, J64, and J54 run Java 5. K90 and J99 run Java 6. But there are 2 possible browsers, Firefox and Opera. J models run FF and K models run O. Classes, browser FF, Java 5, phones, J64, J54, browser FF, Java 6, phones, J99, browser O, Java 5, phones, K80, browser O, Java 6, phones, K90. Dangers of equivalence class testing. Dangers of equivalence class testing. There is a danger of using EC testing that is rarely mentioned in the testing books but is very important to remember. Just because 2 items' values are supposed to be in the same class and behave the same does not mean they do behave the same. That means that just because you test one value in the class, that all values in the class behave the same. Real-world example of mine is with cell phones that all had a certain Java platform. They were supposed to all work the same, but they didn't in reality. So testing just one value in a class is good, but not good enough. EC testing is a good tool, but it's not foolproof, and be careful with it. If test cases are cheap and fast, like automation, test more, or why not test them all? Boundary value testing. BV testing is when you decide to test the values on the edge of each class you have identified. The theory is that most defects are around the edges of a class. Example classes. Price, 0. Age, 0. 1. Boundary values 0, 1. Price, 10. Age, 2. 14. Boundary values 2, 14. Price, 15. Age, 15. 64. Boundary values 15, 64. Price, 5. Age, 65 infinity, boundary values 65. Critique of boundary value testing 1. I, and other test professionals I have taken courses from, are not convinced that most defects are hidden around the edges of each class, and I have never seen any studies that prove this to be the case. 2. The fact that you need to use BV testing proves that EC testing is flawed since you test more than one value of each class. 3. It's easy to use when using values like integers. But what is a boundary value of the class of phones models or browsers versions? Hidden boundary value testing. The boundary values of a class is often based on the specification of how the system should work. This is all good and well, but most systems contain boundaries that are not explained in any spec, and you will need to look for yourself. E.g., how many characters can I put into the test field before the system fails and breaks? How big can the data file become before it is so slow to read it gets annoying? Real-world examples. Pasting 1 million characters into a text area in Firefox 3.5 on Win 7 crashes it. reCAPTCHA has a limit of 16003 characters. Does your system handle the 413 that it passes back to it if somebody puts 16,004 plus characters in the field? Or does it break? Summary EC testing and BV testing are great tools, and you should use them, but they are not perfect, and don't expect to find all defects using them. Use your know-how about the system and your intelligence and intuition to try more items and look for other ways it could fail. And look for the hidden boundaries. 24. You have 3,000 test cases in your suite. Developers are late. The release is in 2 days. Your manager. Save us. We cannot skip the release. What are you going to do? Run risk analysis to understand what features or components were greatest impacted to prioritize testing. Who are you going to communicate to report those risks? To the product owner, decision maker. He can postpone the release. 25. How to start testing without requirements? How will you test if you don't have the requirements? Use common sense. Think from the user's perspective, which can help you to make the software more useful. Compare to similar applications. Try exploratory testing, ad hoc testing. Make things clear as soon as possible. Involve all the teams, that is testers, developers, business analysts, and clients. Divide the whole system into small modules and understand each one in detail. Read the documents properly, which are referred by developers. 26. What is regression testing? Regression testing is a type of testing that is done to verify that a code change in the software does not impact the existing functionality of the product. This is to make sure the product works fine with new functionality, bug fixes, or any change in the existing feature. Previously executed test cases are re-executed in order to verify the impact of change. 27. In what environments we can test the application? In any, but I will test it in which it makes more sense. We can have multiple pre-release environments to test before shipping. 28. During what type of testing you can find the biggest amount of bugs? During boundary conditions testing, because it is very easy to make mistakes there. 29. What is a test case? Test plan. What does test plan include? Testing matrix. Write test cases for a text field. Beside test case and test plan, what documents are required to write? What is a test case? Set of conditions and/or variables under which a tester will determine if a requirement upon an application is satisfied. What does the test case include? When planning for testing the test case ID, the purpose, title, description of the test case, an instruction on how to get from the application base state to a verifiable application output or expected result. Expected result. When execute test cases, we need 2 more columns. Actual result, pass-fail indication. What is a test plan? Document that describes the objectives, scope, approach, and focus of a software testing effort. The process of preparing a test plan is a useful way to think through the efforts needed to validate the acceptability of a software product. The completed document will help people outside the test group understand the why and how of product testing. It should be thorough enough to be useful, but not so thorough that no one outside the test group will read it. What does the test plan include? List of possible items. Most common items are in bold. The following are some of the items that might be included in a test plan, depending on the particular project. Title, identification of software including version release numbers, revision history of document including authors, dates, approvals, asterisk, table of contents, purpose of document, intended audience, objective of testing effort, software product overview, relevant related document list, such as requirements, design documents, other test plans, etc. Relevant standards or legal requirements, traceability requirements, relevant naming conventions and identifier conventions, overall software project organization and personnel/contact info/responsibilities, asterisk, test organization and personnel/contact info/responsibilities, assumptions and dependencies, project risk analysis, testing priorities and focus, scope and limitations of testing, test tools to be used, including versions, patches, etc., personnel allocation, etc. Write test cases for a text field. 5 test cases for capacity, including 2 for each boundary and 1 for the class between boundaries. 3 test cases for valid, invalid input of letters, digits, special characters. 1 test cases for each allowed special character, email field as an example. Functionality testing if there is any functionality. Validation of input as an example, case sensitivity, required field, etc. What is test matrix? Data collection mechanism. It provides a structure for testing the effect of combining 2 or more variables, circumstances, types of hardware, or events. Row and column headings identify the test conditions. Cells keep the results of test execution. If there are so many settings options to choose, how to write test cases? Test cases should be developed for all most common potential scenarios. They should cover most of the positive input. Besides the test case and test plan, what documents are required to write? Check lists, test matrices, test design specs, end-to-end tests, test summary reports, bug reports. 30. You work on the app for the last half a year. Just received the new build this morning. In what sequence you will run testing written down here? Build acceptance testing. A. Regression. B. Bug fix verification. C. Exploratory. D. Compatibility. E. New features testing. F. Performance. G. Smoke. It is important to give the answer with a full explanation of every step to show your logic. 1. First type of testing I will run will be G. Smoke testing. Build acceptance testing, realize acceptance testing. The purpose of it is to prove that the build is testable, and I can continue executing other types of testing. 2. If I know the app very well, there is nothing to explore, so we'll ignore the C, exploratory testing. 3. I received a new build, means there are changes in the code, so I definitely need to run B. Bug fix verification, and E, new features testing to see if they work. Does not matter in which order. Also, I have to run these tests together with D, compatibility, to make sure those changes work great on supported browsers, devices, operating systems. 4. After I am absolutely happy with the previous step, I will run the A, regression testing, to make sure that the changes made during bug fix and new features development didn't break old existing functionalities. Again, together with D, compatibility testing. 5. Only after I understood that my system is robust, good, works nicely, doesn't choke on some steps, I will run F. Performance testing to make sure that performance also was not broken. Sum up. 1. Smoke testing or build acceptance testing or realize acceptance testing. 2. Bug fix verification and new features testing with compatibility testing. 3. Regression testing with compatibility testing. 4. Performance testing. 31. There is a simple login form. How will you test it? Username, password, email. I have to ask an interviewer. What type of the application is that? What are the requirements? After getting the requirements, I will run 1. Functional testing, positive, negative, boundary. Keep asking questions. If this is the web app, then 2. Browsers, compatibility testing. If this is the mobile app, then cross-platform compatibility testing. If the app allows to run multiple users, 3. Stress testing, 4. Usability testing, 5. GUI testing, 6. Performance testing. If we have it secured, then 7. Security testing. If it's not in one language only, then 8. Localization, internationalization testing. If it's going to be used by disabled people, then 9. Accessibility testing, 32. Bug lifecycle. 1. Bug found. 2. Bug reported. 3. Bug assigned to a developer. 4. Bug is fixed. 5. Bug fix is verified. 6. Bug is closed or reopened. 33. What are you going to do if a developer said, the status of the bug is as designed? I disagree that this is the bug. The reason is, requirements are missing or they are very high level and not clear. First thing, review the requirements documentation. And if you see the problem, report this with the link to the documentation. But if the documentation is unclear, you have to discuss, reassign the ticket to the product owner, and he will make the final decision. 34. What are you going to do if a developer said, the bug cannot be reproduced? I will reproduce it again, and if there is no bug, then we'll close the ticket. Sorry, happy to close, thank you. But if you can reproduce the bug again and see that it is valid, then become self-critical. Review your bug report. There are no extra details in the bug report. Check for missing instructions like have to delete cache and cookies in the browser, have to be logged in. Check the build number mentioned in the report. Check the configuration settings. Check the data set. Check everything. Always a great idea to attach a video with the instruction, how to reproduce the bug 35. Is there any difference between a website and web app? Yes. When we are talking about websites, we do have in mind that this is only an informational site. You don't need to interact with those sites. Web app. There is an interaction between the users and app, software. 36. You have a huge drop-down list of the different cars models. How are you going to test it? What would be your approach? I will use the equivalent classes technique, particaning technique, randomly from the middle of the list in the middle. First, second, last, pre-last in the middle. 37. What is a unit testing? Unit testing is testing software with a small piece of source code, unit, component, and/or function of the same software. Unit testing means that the software consists of units, which are separate testable parts of the product, an individual program, class, method, function, etc. 38. What is API testing? API testing is the testing of a set of application programming interfaces, APIs, directly and as part of an integration test to determine if they meet expectations for functionality, reliability, performance, and security. 39. What is performance testing? Performance testing is a non-functional software testing technique that determines how the stability, speed, scalability, and responsiveness of an application holds up under a given workload. 40. What is cross-browser testing? Cross-platform testing. Cross-browser testing is a type of non-functional testing that lets you check whether your website works as intended when accessed through different browser OS combinations, i.e., on popular browsers like Firefox, Chrome, Edge, Safari, on any of the popular operating systems like Windows, macOS, iOS, and Android. Cross-platform testing is a process whereby an application or software is tested across multiple different platforms to ensure it functions properly on all. Different platforms could include different web browsers, operating systems, and devices. 41. What is GUI testing? A graphical user interface includes all the elements such as menus, checkbox, buttons, colors, fonts, sizes, icons, content, and images. GUI testing is done to check the functionality and usability of design elements as a user for an application under test. 42. What is the difference between smoke and sanity testing? Smoke testing and sanity testing are both types of software testing used to identify defects in software applications, but they serve different purposes and are conducted at different times during the software development lifecycle. Smoke testing. Purpose. Smoke testing is performed to ascertain that the critical functionalities of a program are working as expected. It is sometimes referred to as build verification testing because it is typically done to verify that the stability of a new build is good enough for further testing. Scope. The scope of smoke testing is limited. It covers the main functions of the application without going into finer details. The tests are broad but shallow. When it's performed, this type of testing is conducted early in the development cycle and after a new build is received to ensure that the build is stable enough for further testing. Sanity testing. Purpose. Sanity testing is a subset of regression testing, performed whenever quick verification is required to determine whether a particular function or bug fix in an application is working as expected. It is typically focused and deep. Scope. Unlike smoke testing, sanity testing is narrow and deep. It focuses on detailed testing of functionalities and commands, particularly around new changes and features. When it's performed, it is usually performed later than smoke testing, after receiving a software build with minor changes or bug fixes, to verify that the specific issues or functionalities work without unintended disruptions. Differences. Scope and depth. Smoke testing is broad and shallow, while sanity testing is narrow and deep. Purpose. Smoke testing is to confirm the basic functioning of the application and the readiness of the build for further testing, whereas sanity testing focuses on verifying the rationality of specific new features, fixes, or changes. Timing in SDLC. Smoke tests are usually executed before sanity tests. Smoke testing comes first to check the viability of the build. If it passes, then more specific sanity testing can be applied to deeper aspects of the software. Both testing types are crucial in the iterative processes of software development, helping ensure that different phases of releases meet the necessary quality standards before moving on to more rigorous and detailed testing phases. 43. Describe business requirements. Document BRD. Describe functional specification. A BRD is a formal document that outlines the goals and expectations an organization hopes to achieve by partnering with a vendor to complete a specific project. Product requirements. Document PRD. PRDs typically include the following elements: purpose, who it's for, and why you're building it. Features, what you're going to build. Release criteria, goals for the release, e.g., functionality. Timeline, a rough window for the release. A functional specification in systems engineering and software development is a document that specifies the functions that a system or component must perform. The documentation typically describes what is needed by the system user, as well as requested properties of inputs and outputs. 44. What is database, DB? A database is an organized collection of structured information, or data, typically stored electronically in a computer system. A database is usually controlled by a database management system, DBMS. Together, the data and the DBMS, along with the applications that are associated with them, are referred to as a database system, often shortened to just database. 45. What is relational database? Advantages. A relational database is a type of database that stores and provides access to data points that are related to one another. Relational databases are based on the relational model, an intuitive, straightforward way of representing data in tables. In a relational database, each row in the table is a record with a unique ID called the key. The columns of the table hold attributes of the data, and each record usually has a value for each attribute, making it easy to establish the relationships among data points. 1. Simple Model A. Relational database system is the most simple model, as it does not require any complex structuring or querying processes. It doesn't involve tedious architectural processes like hierarchical database structuring or definition. As the structure is simple, it is sufficient to be handled with simple SQL queries and does not require complex queries to be designed. 2. Data accuracy. In the relational database system, there can be multiple tables related to one another with the use of a primary key and foreign key concepts. This makes the data to be non-repetitive. There is no chance for duplication of data. Hence, the accuracy of data in the relational database is more than any other database system. 3. Easy access to data. In the relational database system, there is no pattern or pathway for accessing the data, as to another type of databases can be accessed only by navigating through a tree or a hierarchical model. Anyone who accesses the data can query any table in the relational database. Using join queries and conditional statements, one can combine all or any number of related tables in order to fetch the required data. Resulting data can be modified based on the values from any column, on any number of columns, which permits the user to effortlessly recover the relevant data as the result. It allows one to pick on the desired columns to be incorporated in the outcome so that only appropriate data will be displayed. 4. Data integrity. Data integrity is a crucial characteristic of the relational database system. Sturdy data entries and legitimacy validations ensure that all the data in the database confines within suitable arrangements and the data necessary for creating the relationships are present. This relational reliability amongst the tables in the database helps in avoiding the records from being imperfect, isolated, or unrelated. Data integrity aids in making sure of the relational database's other significant characteristics, like ease of use, precision, and stability of the data. 5. Flexibility. A relational database system by itself possesses qualities for leveling up, expanding for bigger lengths, as it is endowed with a bendable structure to accommodate the constantly shifting requirements. This facilitates the increasing incoming amount of data, as well as the update and deletes wherever required. This model consents to the changes made to a database configuration as well, which can be applied without difficulty, devoid of crashing the data or the other parts of the database. A data analyst can insert, update, or delete tables, columns, or individual data in the given database system promptly and easily in order to meet the business needs. There is supposedly no boundary on the number of rows, columns, or tables a relational database can hold. In any practical application, development and transformation are restricted by the relational database management system and the hardware contained by the servers. So these changes can create an alteration in other peripheral functional devices connected to the particular relational database system. 6. Normalization. The methodical style is maintained for making sure of a relational database structure is liberated of any variances that can make a difference in the integrity and accuracy of the tables in the database. A normalization process provides a set of regulations, characteristics, and purposes for the database structure and evaluation of a relational database model. Normalization aims at illustrating multiple levels of breaking down the data. Any level of normalization is expected to be accomplished on the same level, that is, before moving ahead to the next levels. A relational database model is usually confirmed to be normalized only when it satisfies the necessary conditions of the third normalization form. Normalization offers an impression of reassurance on the database plan to be extra strong and reliable. 7. High security. As the data is divided amongst the tables of the relational database system, it is possible to make a few tables to be tagged as confidential and others not. This segregation is easily implemented with a relational database management system, unlike other databases. When a data analyst tries to log in with a username and password, the database can set boundaries for their level of access by providing admission only to the tables that they are allowed to work on, depending on their access level. 8. Feasible for future modifications. As the relational database system holds records in separate tables based on their categories, it is straightforward to insert, delete, or update records that are subjected to the latest requirements. This feature of the relational database model tolerates the newest requirements that are presented by the business. Any number of new or existing tables or columns of data can be inserted or modified depending on the conditions provided by keeping up with the basic qualities of the relational database management system. 46. What is schema? What are the schema commands? Logical container for database objects, tables, views, triggers that user creates. You should consider a schema to be the user account and collection of all objects therein as a schema for all intents and purposes. SCOT is a schema that includes the EMP, debt, and bonus tables with various grants and other stuff. SYS is a schema that includes tons of tables, views, grants, etc., etc., etc. System is a schema. Technically, a schema is the set of metadata, data dictionary, used by the database, typically generated using DDL. A schema defines attributes of the database, such as tables, columns, and properties. A database schema is a description of the data in a database. 47. What is table? Can we have an empty table? Table is a set of data elements, values, that is organized using columns, fields, and rows, records. Table has a specified number of columns and any number of rows. 48. What is field? What part of the table? Field, column, is a database storage unit. 49. What is record? What part of the table? Record is a row, and it represents a single data in a table 50. What is query? Query is your request to the database to retrieve information. 51. What is report? How much information can you get in one report? If the query is the question, then the report is the answer. Reports can be tailored to the needs of the data user, making the information they extract much more useful. Reports built using one query are the simplest reports. The most popular formats for single query reports are tabular, mailing label, form letter, and break, either group above or group left. In one report, you can display one query's data any number of times, even in different formats. You can query data without including it in the report output. This is useful for establishing relationships between multiple queries, performing calculations, and so on. A report may contain any number of queries. Multi-query reports are useful when you want to. Produce multi-part unrelated query reports. Produce multi-part related query reports. Make your queries easier to maintain. Often a report with a complex query containing embedded select statements and joins can also be created with multiple simple queries that are linked. The latter are often easier for others to understand and maintain. Display the same data twice in a report with different sorting criteria. If you create a report with multiple queries, you can either leave the queries unrelated or establish a relationship between them using a data link. 52. What is BDSM? Name a few popular databases. Database Management System is a software that controls the organization, storage, retrieval, security, and integrity of data in a database. DBMS accepts requests from the application and instructs the operating system to transfer the appropriate data. 53. What is primary key? Foreign key? PK is a unique identifier of every record in the table. Must be unique within a table, can't be null. FK used to establish a relationship between the tables. Usually not unique, one-to-many relation. Always point to a primary key. What is database normalization? Normalization, optimization, is the process of dividing large tables into smaller and defining relationships between them. 54. What does SQL stand for? What does it do? It stands for Structured Query Language. SQL is a database computer language designed for the retrieval and management of data in relational databases, database schema creation and modification, and database object access control management. 55. Name a few schema commands. Describe. In SQL, schema commands are used to define or modify the structure of database objects such as tables, relationships, and indexes. Here are a few key schema commands and their descriptions. Create table. This command is used to create a new table in the database. You specify the table name and define its columns and data types, as well as any constraints like primary keys. Example, create table employees, ID int, name varchar 255, age int, primary key ID. Alter table, used to modify an existing table structure. You can add, delete, or modify columns and constraints. Example, alter table employees, add email varchar 255. This command adds a new column named email to the employees table. Drop table. This command is used to delete a table from the database. It removes the table structure and its data permanently. Example, drop table employees. This command deletes the employees table. Create index. This command is used to create an index on the table to improve the speed of data retrieval. An index is created on one or more columns of a table. Example, create index IDX name on employees. Name. This command creates an index on the name column of the employees table. Drop index, used to delete an index from a table. Example, drop index IDX name on employees. This command removes the index named IDX name from the employees table. These commands are fundamental in SQL database management, allowing administrators and developers to set up, modify, and optimize their databases effectively. 56. How to add a record to the table. To add a record to a table in SQL, you use the Insert Into statement. This command allows you to insert new data into the rows of a table. Here's how you generally use it. Syntax: insert into table name. Column 1, column 2, column 3. Values: value 1, value 2, value 3. Example: if you have a table named Employees with columns ID, name, and age, and you want to add a new employee record to the table, you would use Insert into Employees, ID, name, age. Values: 1, John Doe, 30. This command inserts a new row into the Employees table where the ID is 1. The name is John Doe, and the age is 30. Considerations: make sure the data types of the values you are inserting match the data types specified in the table schema. If a column has a not null constraint, you must provide a value for it in your Insert Into statement unless a default value is set. If you are inserting values into all columns of a table, you can omit the column names in the SQL command. However, it's good practice to specify the column names for clarity and to avoid errors if the table structure changes. 57. How to change one field in the table. To change a field in an SQL table, you use the Update statement. This command allows you to modify existing records in a table based on specific conditions. Syntax: update table, name set column, value 1, column 2 of value 2. Where condition: example, suppose you have a table named Employees with columns ID, name, age, and department. If you want to update the department for an employee whose ID is 1, update Employees, set department, Chakra, marketing, where ID, Chakra 1. This command changes the department field to marketing for the employee whose ID is 1. Considerations: always use the where clause to specify which records should be updated. Without a where clause, all records in the table will be updated. It's important to ensure that the new value you are setting for the field is compatible with the data type defined in the table schema. If you need to update multiple fields at once, you can list them separated by commas in the SETI clause. This method provides a straightforward way to modify data within your database while maintaining data integrity. 58. How to change a table column. To change a table column in an SQL database, you typically use the alter table statement, which allows you to modify the structure of an existing table, including changing a column's definition. There are various alterations you can make, such as changing the column's data type, renaming it, or modifying its constraints. Syntax for changing column data type: alter table table, name modify column, name new data type. Example: if you want to change the data type of a column named age from INT to varchar in a table named employees, alter table employees, modify age varchar. 3. Syntax for renaming a column: alter table table, name rename column, old column, name to new column, name. Example: to rename a column from dep to department in the employees table, alter table, employees, rename column dep to department. Considerations: ensure that the data in the column is compatible with the new data type to avoid data loss or corruption. Always back up your data before making structural changes to your database. Be aware of any database constraints that might affect changes to the column structure, such as foreign key constraints or indexes. Using the alter table command carefully can help you adjust your database schema to meet evolving data storage needs without compromising data integrity. 59. What is the difference between command drop, delete, truncate? Delete, Delta manipulation language, allowed us to delete all or specified records rows from the table. Can be undone. Truncate, Delta definition language, deletes all records once. You cannot specify what you want to delete. All of them cannot be undone. Drop delete table itself, 60. What is the difference between drop, delete, truncate? Scope of action. Delete can be conditional and specific to certain rows. Truncate removes all rows in a table and drop eliminates the entire table. Performance. Truncate is generally faster than delete because it has less transaction log overhead. Drop is the most radical and usually the fastest way to free up space because it removes tables entirely. Recovery. Rows removed by delete can potentially be recovered if the transaction is logged and not committed yet, depending on the database's recovery model. Truncate typically cannot be rolled back, and drop permanently removes the table.